For those of you who've been traveling with us throughout the journey in Lent, we've been following sort of Peter throughout all of Lent, all the way through. We're going to go follow him all the way through Easter. So tonight is this moment where people love to preach about Peter, love to talk about Peter, because you have this insane moment in time. Last night, to Peter's face, Jesus told him, "You will deny me 3 times before the cock crows." He says that over dinner. So we're talking last night. What is sometime around 6 a.m. in the morning, so you're figuring like no more than 12 hours later. Peter is there. It's morning. People are asking him, "Do you know, aren't you a disciple of Jesus?" And he denies him once. He denies him twice. He denies him a third time, and of course the cock crows. It's always seemed just mind-boggling to me how he can go from Thursday night saying, "I will never deny you, I will die before I do that," and 12 hours later, not even remember the conversation. Or not care. See, I don't think it's a not remembering. A lot of people put it as this: he doesn't remember, or he forgot, or he didn't realize, or didn't really believe. I think Peter knows exactly what he's doing in that moment. And the reason I think he's doing it is because it just seems inconceivable that Jesus, who had laid out all these things were going to happen, had laid out all this stuff in front of all of them, had been saying like, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, this is going to happen, and then each one of them, click, 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 keeps happening. That Peter wouldn't have remembered it. But that even begs more, like, then why do it? And I think he does it because he's in absolute despair. I think he's in despair because he's in this moment where he has had 2 things intertwined, inseparable in how he views the world. And those 2 things have now come into conflict. And he's got to decide which side of his core value he's on, because 2 of them are mutually exclusive. See, Peter from the beginning has had a dream of what the Messiah will be, and that is a military political commander who will reestablish the kingdom of David. We talked about this a few weeks ago because it's already caused him to stumble once or twice. And you have Jesus constantly pushing back, being like, dude, no, this is a spiritual revolution. This is a theological revolution. This is not a political revolution. That's not what we're doing. But it's so intertwined and so integral to who he is, Peter's constantly trying to pull them apart, trying to understand where one starts and the other one ends. But dividing his ideology from his spirituality, because they've been intertwined for so long, he finds impossible this evening. Because from an ideological standpoint, his political revolution just failed. The leader's been captured, the leader's been accused, we all know in a tyrannical government, he's gonna get killed. The war's over before it started. There's the 12 of them. Not one of them is a military commander. Jesus has passed up on all the legions, and those people who were going to be his legions just tried to crucify him. From all political and social standpoints, they have failed. From all worldly standpoints, they have failed. But that's why Jesus keeps saying, I'm not a king of this world. I'm a king, kings, Lord of lords. It's not just Peter who makes that mistake this Good Friday. Pilate does too. So do the Pharisees. Not in John, but in other versions of the gospel, in other gospels. You have an interesting story where Pilate's wife sends him a note saying that she has been told that if you kill Jesus, you will go down in history as a murderer, as a tyrant. Don't do it. She had these disturbing dreams. Now, Pilate is not Jewish. Pilate is not Christian. Pilate is part of sort of the Roman pantheon of gods, is what he would have believed in. For those of you who like your mythology, you all know if an oracle tells you not to do something, you know what you do? Don't do it, right? You know your mythology. You know anyone who either doesn't do what the oracle tells them to do or does something when the oracle tells them not to do it. That never ends well in Greek mythology, right? And yet Pilate makes a different choice. Why does he make a different choice? Because, man, he's got a political, diplomatic victory he can land. See, I don't think Pilate is really hesitant about killing Jesus. We know historically Pilate killed tens of thousands of people. We know he crucified tens of thousands of people. There's Roman records showing this, independent of the Bible. You ask an archaeologist or historian, they will give you those numbers. The Romans, if they were good at anything, was killing people and documenting how many they killed. And here's the thing. He realizes he can get a huge diplomatic victory. Because if he keeps pushing back on the crowd and saying, well, I don't know, he's sort of your king, I don't know if I want to kill him, they're going to have to push harder and harder. But they have an ace that they can play. The ace that they can play is, hey, you're no friend of Caesar if you don't kill this other king. Pilate wants him to say that. Because, well, that forces Pilate's hand to do something he doesn't mind doing. He does it every day. He can then force them to say, we have no other king but Caesar. See, the whole basis of unrest in that area to the Romans had been that the religious leaders of the time were fighting tooth and nail to overthrow the Roman Empire. And he knew as governor of the area that if he could get the Pharisees and Sadducees in front of everyone to stand up and say they have no king but Caesar, the political and diplomatic victory is too good not to go for, right? It's like having one party or endorse the other party in a presidential campaign. If you have that ability to get them to do that, you go for it, right? It's just too good. He ignores his own spirituality. He ignores his own religion. Pharisees do too. They should never claim to have another king than God. That violates the first commandment of the 10 Commandments. You should have no other God but me. They know that. We know that. They all betray their own selves because they all have a political vision that causes them to sell out what they know to be right, what they know to be true. And you may be thinking to yourself, okay, fine, I get that, Pastor, but what in the world does that have to do with us today? That doesn't happen now, really. I'm an older end millennial, which means I grew up in the 90s and 2000s. And if you looked around the religious landscape of the 90s and 2000s, the evangelicals, non-denominationals were booming. All my friends were going to all the Xbox parties they were having. But there was a thing that they did. A thing that they did, and we've made the same mistake before, so I'm not picking on them. They mixed conservative ideology with the Republican Party and spirituality, and made a very intoxicating thing that a lot of people loved in the 2000s and the 1990s. We did the same with liberalism in the 1890s, so we don't get to be too much on our high horse against the evangelicals. We made the same mistake just 100 years earlier. And what happens when you do that? Is, yes, it fills the churches for a while, and it fills the coffers for a while, and it's really exciting for 20 years. But then what happens is what's happened in the last 10, which is political ideologies change, right? What it means to be a conservative 100 years ago is very different than what it means to be a conservative today. The parties change. There was a time the Democratic Party reliably carried Alabama. That would never happen today. If you don't believe me, go look it up. The Democrats used to be the party of the South. That changed in 1968. Those of you who are alive understands why. Parties change. Ideologies evolve, but God is eternal. And the problem is when you wrap them all up together and you don't know where one starts and the other ends, you can go through what the evangelicals are going through right now. The Republican Party has changed. It's not the party of Reagan. Whether or not you like it or dislike it, you can all agree that. The definition of conservative has changed. It's not George Bush's party. I'm not doing this to beat up on Republicans or beat up on it. This happens. But if you tied your entire religion, your entire understanding of God to that, And you either got to jump onto a new boat or you're going to fall away. And your spirituality is going to break. You're going to find yourself not knowing what to do. Because you got to ask yourself, am I loyal to party? Am I loyal to ideology? Or am I loyal to God? Because if I see them all as one and the same, what do I do when one of those changes? That's why there's 2 million less evangelicals 10 years later, since 2010 than there are now. They're going through a horrible pain because they made this mistake to go down that dark road. Now, it is not a road that is exclusively on the right. There are those on the left who would do exactly the same thing. So do not feel that I am picking on Republicans in here. I know we got there. Folks, there are Democrats out there that will tell you if you're not a good Democrat, you're not a good Christian if you're not a good Democrat. Or if you're not a good Christian unless you're a progressive. They're making the same mistake. They're making the same judgment. They led the mainline churches down the same dark road in the 1890s. We've just forgotten about it because that was like a long time ago. The parties take their turn of making this mistake. The denominations take their turns making this mistake because it is so easy to make. But it is the same mistake Pilate made today. It's the same mistake Peter made today. It is the same mistake the Pharisees made today, which is they didn't know where those ended for them. They didn't know what was an ideology, what was spirituality. What I beg you to do today in your prayer life is take some time. Take a few minutes. And ask yourself, have you gone down the same road? It does not matter if you are liberal or conservative, libertarian or populist. It's not the ideology. Is the relationship right? Can you sit back and say, this is my spirituality, this is my ideology, and well, surely they're in conversation with each other if there is no space between them. There's a good chance you've made the same easy-to-make mistake that all the people in the Bible today made years before they ended up here. Take some time. Make sure you're not headed down the same dark road that they headed down. And maybe you can avoid the same pain that they put themselves in.